Well, welcome back. We are so glad that you are here. We're so glad that you're joining us for this executive roundtable with Experian. This is the first time we've done something like this. And we thought of the idea because we know how much value our nonprofit partners bring. And, the reality is we all live in the worlds with which we live in and exist in. But yet, there's so much more that if we step outside of that and we begin asking each other questions about what is your perspective on different ways that I can improve, we'll start to find very interesting, enlightening answers. And so that's what we wanted to bring to the table today. At the end of the day, all of us are here to boost our consumers' value. And so, how can we do that together? What ideas, what suggestions can we offer our corporate partners in ways that they can grow and evolve, just like they often bring us excellent feedback and excellent tips? So, I'm Simone Griffin with HomeFree-USA. I think many of you guys know me, and if not, welcome. Nice to meet everyone. And I'm going to introduce you to the HomeFree-USA business support leader, Eddy. Derek is going to introduce the team of people that we've got here, which is a phenomenal group of individuals from Experian, as well as 4 of our nonprofit partners. So I'm going to turn it over to Derek. And Derek, you take it away. Tell us all about who's in the room. You're muted.
Of course I am. That's how you'd get started, how we get started. But thank you, Simone, and welcome everyone. We're joined by several of Experian's business leaders, which include Tiffany In, Director of Consumer Insights, Elizabeth, I might butcher this, Pianalto, Manager of Corporate Responsibility, Tara Steger, Senior Director of Strategy, and Carol Erden, Director of Corporate Responsibility and Sustainability. We are also joined today by several of our affiliate organization business leaders, which include Dina Harris, the Executive Director of National Faith Homebuyers in Detroit, Michigan, and Atlanta, Georgia. Patricia Tracy, Executive Director of Real Estate Education and Community Housing, or REACH, with locations. Pat, I'm not going to name all your locations. They are just everywhere in Florida, I feel like. We have also Faith Batista, President and CEO of National Asian American Coalition, which is in Daly City in San Diego, California, and Carolyn Patton, Manager of Affordable Housing for West Angeles and Community Development Corporation in Los Angeles, California. And with that said, I will turn it over to Experian to begin their presentation.
Great, thank you, Derek. Well, as Derek said, I'm Carol Erden, and I direct our corporate responsibility and sustainability programs for North America. That's a lot to say that my main focus is on working with nonprofit organizations on our Global United for Financial Health program, which is a program that we developed a year and a half ago when the pandemic hit to really get the message of financial health and inclusion out to communities that just really needed it and were just struck hard by the pandemic, and also just communities that have needed it for years. And so we really focus on working with these nonprofits in a lot of different ways. We've had several different strategies and ways that we've done that. And so one of the things that we've done at the beginning of the pandemic was to work with the NAACP and the National Urban League to do home preservation grants. And those home preservation grants helped many, many people who were really in danger of losing their home due to the pandemic. And so we were able to provide support and keep people in their homes. So that was really, I think, one of the most heartwarming things at the beginning of the pandemic, to be able to help these people make sure that they were going to be secure in their houses. We've done a lot of social media campaigns, also working with an organization called Save Her Life that helps people actually save money and incentivizes them to be able to get money saved no matter what their financial income is and the place that they're in. And so people can save money and have that money matched. So it's been a real joy to work on these projects. Most recently, we were able to partner with Lecrae, a Grammy award-winning hip hop artist, to do a series of 6 different financial education videos that are out on social media. You can find it on LinkedIn. And so he's really talking to young adults about how to really have a financial future, and not just a financial future, but a financial legacy, and really helping to try to bridge that wealth gap in North America. So like I said, it's a global program, but my focus is here on North America. And so again, these programs are evolving and moving forward. And so we're learning a lot. But really, our aim was to reach as many people as possible with the message of financial health and inclusion, and making sure that we're reaching populations that may not be hearing that message. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Elizabeth, my colleague, who also works in the corporate responsibility space. Elizabeth.
Thanks, Carol. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon or this morning, wherever you're based, and thanks for having us as well. As Carol mentioned, I'm Elizabeth Pianalto. I am Manager of Corporate Responsibility at Experian, and Carol and I work very, very closely together. We're a very dynamic team of two that manage all of corporate responsibility for the North America region. Which is quite a big job for two people. So we have a lot of overlap in the jobs that we do. But something that I specifically focus on at Experian is our employee volunteer program. We have a very strong employee volunteer program, a great network of volunteer ambassadors that I manage as well. And although volunteering looks a little bit different now than it did maybe a year and a half ago, we have really successfully made a pivot into the virtual space and supporting communities in the way that we can safely. And before we get too much into how we're supporting nonprofit organizations, I'll pass it on to my other colleagues to do quick introductions for themselves. So I'll pass it on to Tara.
Hey everyone, I am Tara Stager, and I'm a Senior Director on the consumer side of Experian's business. And my role specifically is to bring Experian Boost to consumers where they're at. So I focus on partnerships who are largely helping consumers build credit and consumers who have traditionally been underserved. Our direct to consumer goals are financial inclusion for all. And we believe that Experian Boost really helps those underserved consumers get started on their credit journey. And so instead of just waiting for consumers to come to Experian, we're bringing Boost out into the environments where those consumers are already interacting with the types of data that actually qualify for Experian Boost. And with that, I will pass it over to my colleague on the direct-to-consumer side, Tiffany Ng.
Thanks, Tara. So I'm Tiffany Ng, and I just want to say that people fascinate me. We're so intrigued because of our differences, and I'm always trying to understand the why and why people do what they do. Why do they say different things? There's always a reason. And when it comes to money and finances, I'm particularly interested in really learning how this can impact people's lives as barriers and as vehicles to live their best lives, which is why at Experian, at UCS, I lead a team of researchers that really help us get to the core of that. As Director of Consumer Insights, we do listen to a lot of people and ask them questions that really help guide our business to close the gaps between what people want and how to help them get there. So I'm really excited today to be here. As Tara mentioned, I also help with looking at different products and features that really enable consumers to live their best lives. So being able to listen to your feedback and your ideas is going to be really important for us today.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. Honestly, it's funny. This is how divine timing works. Just this morning, I was looking at, I think it was Google News, and I saw the article about Lecrae partnering with you all. And I was so thrilled, and I didn't get a chance because I was rushing over to our office, so I didn't get a chance to read it. But I was like, well, look at this. And I really wanted to read it. so that, we could talk about it a little bit more on here, but all good. I'm thrilled about that. I love Experian Boost. I have been in and out of your platforms for years because I've been, frozen my credit and unfrozen it and all of that. And each time you go through that process, it teaches you a little bit more about the products that you guys have to offer. So I'm grateful for that. So we are going to thank you, ladies, for all of your insight. This has really been wonderful. We are going to turn it over to our affiliate network now. We are going to start with Dina Harris. As Derek mentioned, Dina is with National Faith Home Buyers out of Detroit and Atlanta. And Dina has some really, really great suggestions. Derek, you want to start start the screen share. And Dina, we're going to turn it over to you for the next few minutes.
Thank you, Simone. Glad to be here. Experian is, of course, one of my personal partners. And so it's given me an opportunity to actually speak on a subject I actually know something about. One of the things that I thought would be great as a partner with Experian was to create marketing efforts. Many of the HomeFree team, we see a great deal of families throughout the month that we counsel. I believe we educate approximately 70 families a month. And so I realize, I use myself as the guinea pig here, everybody, just so you know, but I realized that a lot of our clients come to us and they use other credit platforms to guide them, but they're not as efficient as Experian is. And so, over the last year and a half, I've been parallel tracking Credit Karma and Experian because a lot of people rely on that, but their scores are always inaccurate. And families come to us, and thank you for that, Derek, because I use this comparison and these numbers are a result of a credit that started out at a debt level that was probably 70 or 80%. And that's now down to 30%. And you can see that the numbers they're not even parallel. They don't make any sense. I was able to get an additional score today from FICO, and that score for this very file was 699. Okay, and so I think that there's an opportunity here to get our families looking at actual information. I realize Experian does not really even charge for this information. I mean, all these groups offer additional information that you could pay for, but just to get the basics, and with a group of families, let me slow it down a little bit. The HomeFree family together, we're virtually an army of counselors that could work with families and get them looking at actual scores. You don't know how disappointing it is for them when they go to apply for something and find out that the scores that they've been working with aren't real. So these numbers, I just wanted to show you the differences where Credit Karma is on the left, Experian is on the right. You can see the credit usage, it's 34%. So, that just tells you that and the scores on the left haven't changed in a year and a half. That's the interesting thing. Okay, so and I actually termed it the Experian experience, because that's what it's been for the last year and a half. I really like that marketing title, just throwing it out there. You don't have to use it, but nobody else owns it. So thank you, Derek. I think that that's pretty much, but I thought that this offered two things. First of all, it would increase your market. It would help us if we could perhaps brand something together. We don't have to, because we can use it independently. It would help small businesses, and it would help nonprofits, but at the same time, it would help our families as well. And if we could make it a little more user-friendly for our families of diversity, we could also sort of educate them and help them take the fear out of credit. That's my presentation. I hope that was long enough, Simone.
You were perfect. Thank you very much, Dina. We are going to turn it over to Patricia Tracy. Pat, tell us some ideas that you have for how Experian can successfully support small businesses and nonprofits.
I'm glad to do that, Simone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to Experian. I think one of the things in my organization, we do property housing, and we do rentals, and we do mortgages. Excuse me, just a minute. And we do housing and we do mortgages, and therefore it would be wonderful if we could have and I had that call interrupt, so I'm sorry. If we could have Experian help us report those, if it wasn't so expensive. We've looked at opportunities to join other groups, but the expense is great in order to do that. So I just think if they would give us even 10 or 20 opportunities to report credit monthly, that would be a great success. I also think that they have very good opportunities for small business partners, but hardly anyone knows about it. So if we could have a little bit of help on that, maybe extending their marketing to show the good work that they do for small businesses, I too think that would be very important. And also being able to report non-traditional credit on small businesses, I think that would be helpful. Their rent, their utilities, something to help build up the small business. And as you know, if we could get that help in reporting credit on an individual basis, it would certainly help us with HUD so we can show the improvement of credit scores. So I'm hopeful that between all of this, their expanded marketing on small business so people know the good work they do, the scores being able for us to help that increase and show it to HUD, that those would be things that would be prime for me to do.
Those are excellent suggestions, Pat. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. And finally, we're going to go to Faith. Faith Bautista, you're there. Last time I saw you, I didn't see your camera. I want to make sure you're on with us. But Faith, if you're there, you let us know. Give us some suggestions as to what you're thinking. Faith, let us know if you can hear us. Okay, what we're going to do is, I think Faith is having some technical issues, so we're going to come back to her in a moment. But in the interim, while we're waiting for Faith, we have one question that has come in for Experian. Do you have materials explaining the Experian boost to our past clients? There you are, Faith. Thank you. Experian, do you guys have materials explaining Experian boost so that can be passed to our clients?
Yes, absolutely we do. That is something that I would be able to help with. Most of our materials explain Experian Boost to the consumer, again, because we are consumer facing and Experian Boost is a consumer product. The other side of Experian Boost is how it impacts lending. And we do have material on that as well. So I would be happy to provide that as a follow-up to anybody who needs it after today's webinar.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right, Faith, I'm glad we got our tech issues resolved. So Faith Bautista is with National Asian American Coalition. And Faith, give us your suggestions for how Experian can successfully support small businesses and nonprofits.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Good morning, all. Experian, you can do so much for small businesses. There's going to have 4.8 more million small businesses that will come in. More businesses actually that lost in 2020 and 2019. So supporting small businesses is so important. And I would really encourage that the small businesses right now, people that we serve anyway, I would say 90% do not have a credit scoring. How can Experian help small businesses build a credit scoring? And the other one also is, how can Experian collaborate more with organizations like us, you know, the HUD approved counseling agency, the CDFI? How can you truly collaborate? what is the partnership look like? Aside from, of course, funding, financially funding, how can you equip us to help the small businesses increase their credit scoring? Because it's too expensive to be poor. And all the small businesses that we serve are still, living paycheck to paycheck. And they cannot be an employee anymore. So they want to be a micro business, which also gives them freedom. How can you help us? And I'm really asking collaboration, meaning more concrete partnership. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Faith. We really appreciate that. Okay, so these are our suggestions for successfully supporting small businesses and nonprofits, and I'll run through them really quickly with you guys. Oh, sorry, I messed up my share. I was going to run through them really quickly with you all, but now I can't see them. Here they go. Number one, increase marketing a mobile app, marketing efforts and benefits to clients. Small business support, increasing target market to include small businesses. Small and micro businesses should have access to a non-traditional credit report, such as rent and utilities, to help build credit. And then partnerships, free and reduced cost to pull credit reports for nonprofits, partnering with nonprofits on financial literacy, helping the underbanked, and unbanked, and establish relationships with organizations assisting LMI borrowers. Thank you all so much for all of that feedback. That's excellent. We're going to move on to our second topic area, but before we do, which is company actions that address racial inequities. But before we do, Experian has a quick video that they'd like to show. So Derek, I'll turn it over to you to launch that.
I'm going to try to launch it. Give me 1 second here.
Okay, take your time.
Sorry.
You got it. Okay.
It's not pulling up for me again. I apologize.
No problem. No problem. Why don't we do this, Derek? You keep working on it in the background. In the interim, why don't we pull up the next suggestion? And one thing while we're preparing for the next topic that I'd like Experian to think about, and you guys can answer this at the end and you can come back to us later, is how can we as nonprofits best support the work that you're doing in the community? When we're on the ground, we're talking to your customers as well as, your customers are our customers. What can we do to best support the work that you guys are doing? So take a moment and think about that, and we will go on to the next topic, which is company actions that address racial inequities. We're going to start with Carolyn Patton with West Angeles CDC out of Los Angeles.
Simone, I think I do have the video now. If you
okay. All right. Yeah, let's go ahead and pull it up, and then Carolyn, we'll turn it over to you.
Let's talk about debt, and let's talk about how debt has accumulated over the last few years. Let's see, had a kid. A kid had a minor issue, came in earlier than expected, and so kid had to go into the NICU. So that is an expense. You have to find some way to be able to pay for that. Really want to do savings, right? In some financial experts say you get 3 to 6 months of your expenses. And so if you have a lot of expenses, how do you accumulate that while you're also getting out of debt, right? That is a feat that is difficult to do. I think Experian has helped me do that, is to stay abreast of things that I'm doing, my credit score. For example, I got an alert that my debt to income ratio was too high. So if I'm trying to get another credit card or whatnot, I can't do that. So that is motivation for me to say, you know what, let's try to get some of this debt paid off. That's what we're working with. We're trying to pay off debt as quick as possible, trying to save up money in the interim, and just really trying to make sure that our financial picture looks good, not only for me and my wife, but for our kid.
I went from a situation where I was making a very comfortable living. I had plenty saved, very little debt, and I was purchasing my own home. Quickly I went from all those good things happening to making no money. My paychecks were non-existent. I still had a job, but there was no commission because we weren't selling, because homes weren't being sold. About 14, 15 months into the whole process, things got a little bit better. I started to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And through the process of paying off the debt and trying to rebuild my credit, I used Experian to make sure that my payments were being applied, there was nothing erroneous on my credit, and just kind of to reassure myself that it was getting better.
Thanks, Derek. That was excellent, Experian. Thank you guys for providing that. You know, the people that you showed on the video have some very real life experiences that the reality is our homeownership advisors see that type of person every day who's just really, they're trying to do the right thing. They just don't know necessarily what to do sometimes. And then sometimes life just happens to them and they're just trying to figure out how to get back on track. So I love that you guys showed that. And I love how you've shown especially how Experian can support that. And so we're really appreciative of that. So now I'm going to turn it over to Carolyn Patton, who will discuss different ways that we can address racial inequities. And you guys have really teed it up very well. Carolyn, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Simone. What I want to bring up, I just want to bring up 2 points. And my first one would be what I see and what I've seen on minority credit reports that I don't see on majority credit reports. And those are utility collections. I see a lot of those and a lot of clients have no idea what they're for. You have some utility companies that someone have put something in their name, or when they left and moved from one address to another one, it becomes a collection. My recent experience was and with someone that's trying to get a job, and they had a collection from a utility, and the job they were trying to get was with the police department, and it held up there because of that. And so we had to show her how to figure out who it was, how to contest it. She could lose the job and it was only $400. So my suggestion would be something like this. When you have, because it looks like utility companies and certain companies just can go and put those collections on their credit report. And because everybody don't check it yearly, get the free report until it's some situation like this. They're trying to get a job, not just credit. This person was trying to get a job. And I feel in a suggestion mode with a lot of the credit Experian is that to have a milestone for these collections. For instance, to have a period where if it's 1,000 or more, or even below 1,000, whatever, that there's an investigation and don't just allow necessity type collections to be thrown on a consumer's report. This is something that is happening often, and she had no idea. And this was something that was done a couple of years ago, but it just showed up on her credit report a month ago. After she applied for the job, then it showed up from her, what she stated to me. So my suggestion is to have some kind of milestone or procedures when it comes to utility companies, medical bills, those type of things that the consumer has no control over, that especially medical bills during this COVID. I'm seeing a lot of medical bills on consumers report that had COVID or COVID related medical bills. So these are things that I think it should be a different process than credit cards, cars, houses. Those are bills that a lot of these consumers have no idea that was put on there. And it's not only about getting credit, it's about getting jobs and getting back to work that's holding up their process, that can even stop them from work. So my suggestion is to have a different kind of process, a procedure together for people that get collections from utility companies and medical facilities or medical bills. Also, what I'm seeing also, hold on one second.
Oh, I think Carolyn may have had an issue while she is gone. I actually do have a question I'm going to pose to everybody, and then we will. Okay, she's back. All right.
I do apologize.
That's all right.
I want to make sure somebody was coming through my door. I do apologize. And my last, but not least, I had several, but this is the last one, is looking at certain minorities credit report versus majority credit reports, and to do initiatives and studies on credit report and how they're being reported based on low to moderate income buyers or low to moderate income areas. So I do apologize for the interruption, but those are the two things that I would suggest that if Experian can be like the head or start initiatives that help low to moderate consumers and areas to boost their credit, to get more education on how credit works. It's hard if they don't know, and maybe if it's getting into the high schools or the junior high schools or middle schools, as they call them now, and doing that education piece at an earlier age. And that's it for me. Thank you again.
Thank you, Carolyn. I appreciate that. We're going to turn now to Andrea Debnam. Andrea is with PCRI. Andrea, you know I always mess up what that means, but I think it's Portland Community Reinvestment Initiative, but I could be wrong because you always tell me I'm wrong each time, and I accept that. So Andrea, tell us more about not only the full name of your organization, but also what you would suggest that Experian and other companies do to address racial inequities.
Well, good morning and good afternoon. Thank you, Simone. And you got it right. My name is Andrea Debnam, and I'm with Portland Community Reinvestment Initiatives here in Portland, Oregon. We are a nonprofit community development corporation, as well as an owner of several rental properties and programs around home ownership and financial education. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all. And I just first want to say, I thank Experian for having the courage, if you will. These are sometimes not always the most comfortable conversations, but to have these conversations, which just lends itself to your commitment to improving and how we do better for the communities that we serve around the country. So I just wanted to say that. I would echo a lot of the things that Carolyn has said in reference to utility and medical bills, also using rent and utilities as additional scoring models. One of the things that we have found to be really successful in our program, particularly with our residents, because our goal is to move people into more self-sufficient roles, ultimately home ownership. And we have been using a platform for a couple of years that has been reporting rent, and it has been extremely successful in our residents being able to see just drastic increases to their credit scores. So I really encourage, if that's something that Experian can continue to or start to participate in. The other thing, when we talk about racial inequities, we're obviously talking about historically and currently not having an equal playing field when it comes to areas around reporting. So I think it's important as organizations to really understand where those disparities have lied historically, and perhaps that is something Experian is doing and looking at other ways to address those disparities. But we certainly know that historically, many of the financial instruments that traditionally are used to report are financial instruments that have inherently been biased, basically, and have not been made available to most of our Black and other communities of color and low-income communities. So again, looking at where there are differences, as Carolyn said, and evaluating what is reported on majority credit reports, what is being reported on other credit reports. The other thing I would say that we see a lot in our program is just this is the initial fear from even trying to dispute any of the issues that arise. And so, because people feel like they're up against a giant, right? It's very hard to just navigate that process. And ultimately, I think we have our participants that feel like it's just an uphill battle, and it's designed to go against them, meaning they're fighting big corporations who have said that they have these errors or they have these discrepancies. And it's just a very hard process to navigate. And so I would just be open to us to have continual conversations of how we make that process not as daunting, not as challenging. And when someone is going through those dispute processes, what we find is either the dispute is successful or it's not. And chances are when it's not, there's not a lot of explanation for why it didn't happen, what went wrong. And so I think there needs to be a lot of more accountability on the companies that are reporting, and at the same time, be able to explain to consumers, a little bit more about how they will navigate that process. And if something doesn't turn out in their favor, why did that happen? What does it mean? And yeah, I think that pretty much covers some of the main things that I wanted to offer as suggestions. And I hope that this is just the beginning of more conversations to have about this topic that is very critical and very important to our communities. So thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. And I totally agree that it can feel like a very daunting process to, do anything with your credit, quite frankly, for people who are just not aware, just not comfortable, which quite frankly is the majority of Americans, especially if you are not familiar with the financial markets in the US. Let's say you're first generation American. I think it could be harder for someone who is coming to this country from a place that doesn't have this type of credit model. So what do you do in that instance? And then you've got people who, yes, they were born and raised in the US, but they're still not very familiar. This is not stuff that is taught in school. So really excellent points. So to sum up, we're going to summarize the company actions that address racial inequities. Score modeling is number one. Remove collections under $500 for utilities and medical bills. Student loan reporting is something to be considered, and rent and utilities should be used in scoring models. That's really important. Racial inequities in credit reporting, the credit score collection study, consumer protections from unfair, deceptive business practices, and reassessing the process for disputing resolution and denial explanations. And then finally, in public-private partnerships, partnering with reporting agencies and creditors to allow consumers to go through credit counseling and receive credit off of their debts. So excellent ideas. I want to point out one thing that we haven't really highlighted very much before, which is this QR code right at the bottom right. That is a poll that Experian would like you guys to take. This is for them to collect additional information beyond what we're talking about today, additional information that will help them in their business practices. So Carol, Tiffany, Elizabeth, you want to speak a little bit more about the poll that is down there? And you guys, you just click that QR code, which you can open up with your phone, something like that, and access the poll. So I'm going to turn it over to Experian, and then we'll come back with some questions.
Sure, yeah. So we have an internal mission at Experian, which is financial power to all, and we're just getting started with it. We've been it took us a long time to really get to this statement that really rallies our employees and everyone behind this, because we've committed to really helping consumers, like you saw in the video, pay off debt. We've got other ones around helping people save money and getting just more access to credit and finances. So as we think about financial power to all, we've talked to consumers already and heard a great deal about what that means and what that means specifically when Experian says something like that. But we want to take this opportunity to hear from you and how you represent these different consumers. What does financial power to all mean, and how can Experian? One of the things we heard from consumers is that it really does mean nothing until you put action behind that. And so you all come from a place of expertise on how you can help us get there. So we're interested in hearing about that.
Excellent, excellent. So we've got a couple questions that have come in. As we speak about closing the racial wealth gap, and then I'm going to open this up to everybody, Experian, our nonprofit partners, anybody who wants to answer this question. As you speak about closing the racial wealth gap, what 3 things do you think are crucial to achieving this goal? Anyone?
Simone, I hate to ask this, but would you mind repeating that question?
Sure, no problem.
I was going to ask the same.
Okay, no problem. As we speak about closing the racial wealth gap, what 3 things do you feel are crucial to achieving this goal? And this is open to anyone. Go ahead, Faith.
It has to come from the top, right? The CEO has to feel that this is not the check the box, that this is the DNA of my organization, that I feel, and this is the right thing, that everybody has the right to be at the table. You should not choose who should be at the table. All of us here, people of color, especially the one that truly underserved the communities, and I put a whole chat in there. There's a lot of the small businesses that are and even consumers that are still unbanked and underbanked. There are 46 million of us that we represent. So unless the CEO and the senior management and their board of directors understood that no more, I mean, discrimination will always be there, but right? But let's face it, that should be obsolete. There should not be Black Lives Matter. There should not be anti-Asian hate. You should do the right thing by treating everybody the same. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to chime in?
Simone.
Go
ahead,
Andrea, and then Gina.
Okay. I would say we've got to do something about homeownership opportunities around the country. We know that homeownership is one of the best stabilizers and areas in which people are allowed to build wealth. And I think we have to look at where those barriers are and really be intentional. And this is across the industry, across our communities. Everybody has to be involved. But I think we've got to do something about how we stabilize families that are more underserved and underrepresented, particularly in the homeownership space. That is a good place. And along with that comes employment, right? Many of our low income or minority communities, there is an issue around underemployment and employment. So we have to look at all of those things in order to create more stable opportunities for our families across communities.
Yeah, I totally agree. And this goes into, I think it was you, Carolyn, that talked about the people who are not being able to be hired because of their credit score. And of course, if you can't get hired because of that, how are you ever going to improve your credit score? So that's a very fair point. Dina?
I was thinking that when the banks realized that they had to sort of work towards righting a wrong, they created diversity officers And I'm thinking maybe the credit departments, Experian might want to think about doing something very similar, by creating a department or a role or a person that could bend over backwards, so to speak, to right the wrongs of people that don't have a comfort level with the credit world in the first place, but that can speak the language, that can help them understand what's wrong and how to fix it.
Excellent. I love that. And that actually leads into another question that I have, which I'm also opening up to everybody here. A lot of people, and Andrea hit on this, a lot of people are very afraid of even looking at their credit reports. Why do you guys think that is? And how do you think we can work together to overcome those fears? I'm gonna challenge you guys. I'm gonna ask somebody from Experian to answer this question as well as one of our nonprofit partners.
Hey, people are scared. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, this is Tara from Experian, so I'm taking the challenge. I think people are afraid to check their credit, similar to how maybe people are afraid to go get that test at the doctor when they know something is wrong, but they don't really want to know or hear or see it. I sometimes think credit feels the same way. In terms of it's just scary to see if you know something might not be exactly the way that you want it to be. And going back to a couple of your other questions, Simone, one with, you know, what can we do to help the underserved communities, and also what our partners here today can do to help Experian. And I think one of the answers that to both those questions is education and trust. And so I think education is incredibly important in terms of helping underserved communities and consumers understand how credit actually works, and also what role the Bureau plays. I think Experian is constantly trying to balance the two sides of our business. One is making sure that we're giving lenders an accurate picture of a consumer's creditworthiness, and the other is making sure that consumers don't think we're holding them hostage with something that's inaccurate on their credit report. And so what we do here in the direct-to-consumer business is try to provide that education to consumers and give them access to the tools that will help them manage that credit report that maybe they don't want to see. So we have dispute tools online. So traditionally, it's been hard for consumers to dispute information on their credit reports. And we've done a lot of work in our direct-to-consumer products and services to help consumers easily dispute things. And then going back to minority credit reports with regard to utilities and delinquencies. And we noticed a long time ago, but we launched Boost a couple of years ago to address that, right? So it's not fair that your utility companies can report you when they're delinquent, but that they don't consistently report your positive payment history. And so what Experian Boost does is it allows consumers to report that positive payment history. And we think that that is one of the things that's really helping underserved communities. We've helped over 7 million consumers with Experian Boost and added over 50 million points to credit scores over the last 2 years. And really, we're just getting started. So as we continue to find solutions that we can offer to consumers because we are the Bureau, we will do that. And so I guess to summarize how our partners and you guys who are on the ground with these consumers, how you can help us is, I think, be our trust advocate, encourage consumers to use Experian's free products and resources and tools, and to check that credit report and to start those disputes and to use Experian Boost. Also, credit monitoring helps consumers become aware of things like delinquencies so that they don't find out for the first time when they're applying for a job. And so all these tools are helping to educate the consumer about, how they can increase their score and keep them on top of their credit. We know that it's expensive to have a bad credit score, and Experian is really trying hard to help consumers with that score so that they don't have to incur all of those additional expenses.
Excellent. Thank you, Tara. And I have to say, one thing that we want to include, we want to go farther, even with our partnership with you guys. Consider us a massive resource to get the word out as to all the great things that Experian is doing. And in line with that, you guys may consider a lunch and learn type of deal where we have several of our nonprofit partners get together and learn a bit more about your products and services, especially the ones that pertain to our clients, so that we can get that word out, just like you suggested. So thank you for that. And someone else wanted to add something, I think Carolyn and then Faith. Go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
That's okay. Faith can go.
Go ahead, Faith.
Okay, Tara, how can you also help us? Because you cannot serve everybody, right? And we're the trusted organization. People come to us. Perhaps you can also work with us and lower the fees of nonprofit so we can pull the credit report for them, because it is scary. Even me, I'm so scared all the time because my credit score, it depends when whatever day it is, it goes up and down. Can you imagine for those that are below 640? So if you can help us pull the credit report for them at a lower rate, we're nonprofit, we're always begging for money, but it's a good way of funding a nonprofit and helping those people pull the credit report. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Dina?
Simone, I wanted to sort of answer your question as well. One of the things you asked was why were consumers afraid to find out about their credit report. And one of the things that we as counselors have discovered, which isn't really Experian's issue, but you need to understand that many times people of color have been punished because of their credit scores, or they've been misused to turn them down. We have many opportunities to see the people that we counsel sent off the banks with fairly decent scores, should be able to get a mortgage. They aren't able to. And when we send in our white client with a very similar looking credit report, they're approved. And so, and even to the point that we've had people whose credit score was very, very high, that were talked out of getting a mortgage because of the credit report. So that's why there's so little trust. So that's one of the things that we have, and it's not really you delivering that message, it's that they're using to be the whipping boy. So you have to be conscious of what the world is putting out there in your name.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dina. Pat, did you want to add?
Well, I would like to say that if we do all the conflicts and everything and do the proper way to work on credit reports, if we had a nonprofit hotline person, if things aren't moving, someone that we could deal with, that's not just the paperwork and online, but someone we could speak to that could maybe investigate a little bit more once we've done all the other work. I don't mean throw it up front, but it would be nice to have a voice, a person, a link to work with to really help our clients when it's justified.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Pat. I totally agree with that. 2 questions have come in and we are wrapping up and got about 7 minutes left. One question, and this is for Experian. What can be done to assure that what clients are seeing on their credit score aligns with what lenders see? Also, how can Experian assist with the vast differences in scoring across the board with other bureaus? I'm specifically speaking about what consumers see when they pull their credit. It's the score 8 number, which is not used by a mortgage lender. I'm sorry, I don't know what that is. And therefore, this doesn't help the consumer to understand what mortgage companies and other creditors see. Carol, you want to take that? Or can you take that? Or Tara?
Yeah, I can take that. So I think the question is, how can we help consumers better understand what mortgage lenders are evaluating them on? Is that accurate?
Yeah, the alignment between the what the lender is seeing on their side and what the consumer is seeing when they pull their own credit report.
Yes, absolutely. So we try to do a really good job within our consumer products to explain to consumers what lenders see when they pull their credit report, what high-level attributes lenders care about, what types of things in their credit report they can change to make themselves more appealing from a credit score perspective. Ultimately, and this is part of the education that I was talking about earlier, Experian doesn't own the scoring algorithm for mortgage loans. Freddie and Fannie and FICO own that algorithm, if you will. And so while we understand quite a bit about it and we can tell you the data that's in your credit report and how that impacts those scores, at the end of the day, it's not actually something Experian can affect. We can only help you try to understand. And that's actually why we use FICO on our site. I believe Dina showed the Credit Karma scores and their Vantage scores. Those tend to be quite a bit further away from, the FICO 2 score that's used for mortgage. We show a FICO 8 score on our site. FICO scores are used by 90% of top lenders. So we try to do our best to show consumers exactly what it is that a lender will see. But lenders also use custom algorithms. So they'll consider a FICO score, but then they'll maybe decide to use some other types of attributes, whether it's verification of income, or they might weight, foreclosures differently. And so it's hard for Experian to kind of manage all of that because, again, at the end of the day, it's really the lender's decision and they get to use, they decide, which data affects the score. But one of the reasons we brought FICO to market a few years ago within our consumer products is exactly to close that gap, to make sure consumers really understand how lenders are viewing them and that we're using the same score when we show consumers a credit score that lenders are actually using.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tara. And I have one more question for Experian, and any of you guys can answer this. Do you know why the online dispute process prompts consumers to waive some of their Fcra rights? And I don't think that's specific to Experian, just it's a broader based question about disputing in the credit reporting system. Do you guys know that?
I don't think anybody on this call knows that specific reason, but we work very closely with that product team. So we'll take that back as a takeaway.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you guys. We appreciate that. I want to really thank you guys. Experian, we would love to have you host a credit lunch and learn. There's so much more to your service beyond just gathering data. Quite frankly, there's so much more to learn. And so we really want to ask you guys, and we want to invite not just you guys on the call, but everybody in our audience and then some to remember to join us next year in New Orleans when we'll finally be live after 2 years of virtual event. We're going to be live in New Orleans, which we were planning on doing last year, but COVID didn't care. So we're going to join us in New Orleans at the Omni Royal Orleans. That's going to be our hotel. So we'll be right in the heart of the French Quarter. If anybody has not been to New Orleans, just prepare to bring your sweats, and you're going to gain 10 pounds while being there, okay? Because they have the best food across the country. They also have excellent music, and you all know Marcia, so you know she's got 17 different ideas for how to bring some music and some fun to this conference. So we are thrilled to be able to see you guys in person. I love a Zoom, but I'm actually ready to see people in person. So I'm thrilled, and I really hope you guys will join us next year. In the interim, I want to say thank you. Derek's coming in. Look, he's on week 4 or 5, and he has just been thrown into the fire. So thank you, Derek, for putting this together with us. Thank you, Carol Urton, Tara Steger, Tiffany Ng, and Elizabeth Pianalto from Experian. Thank you, Andrea Debnam, Dina Harris, Carolyn Patton, Pat Tracy, and Faith Bautista from the HomeFree-USA nonprofit network. We are incredibly thrilled and grateful that your genius has been put on display today. And we know that this is going to be an amazing thing, and there's so much more to come. So we're really grateful. So again, we're going to see you guys next year in person, but hang on, give us about 5 to 10 minutes, check out our next thought leader clip, and we will see you for our final session. All right, thanks again. We're really appreciate it. Have a good evening, or see you guys tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thanks. Oh, exhibitor booths, check those out. All right, bye-bye.